lot on the show, but there's sometimes I have to get serious. And today's topic is a very serious one for every woman in our audience. 1 in 4 of you is going to come down with this condition at some point in your lives. It completely alters your brain chemistry. But chances are you won't know what's wrong with you. And you know what? Your doctor probably won't know either. But it will make your life a living hell. That's why I want you to get out a pen and paper, call your friend, your mom, your sister, because this disorder, even in the most severe cases, is highly treatable. Today, we're getting to the bottom of depression. What it is, what it looks like, and what you can do about it. I'm about to reveal the 5 warning signs of depression. But first, I've got a question for you. Do you see yourself or someone you love in this? It's been called the most significant mental health risk for women, depression, and it can strike women of all ages. While 17 million Americans experience depression each year, women are actually almost twice as likely to experience it as men. The reasons? Biology and hormones, menstruation, pregnancy, and menopause all contribute to a woman's increased susceptibility. Depression can make it absolutely impossible to function normally. It affects your sleeping, eating, concentration, sex life, and desire to have fun. Early and appropriate treatment can actually relieve those symptoms in almost 80% of all cases. But alarmingly, depression is misdiagnosed in women up to 50% of the time. And for millions of women, depression goes undiagnosed entirely. If you think you might be suffering with depression, knowing what symptoms to look for and where to go to get help could change your life forever. Now, before we go any further, I want to make one thing really clear. The embarrassment and silence about this epidemic has got to end right now. Joining me today on the stage are 7 brave women who have lived through this nightmare. And with their help, we're going to go through the 5 warning signs to look for if you think you or someone you love is depressed. Many people equate this illness with suicide and thoughts of death. And you know what? That can be part of the reality in really extreme cases. But today, I want to talk to you about the most common symptoms that we see in the majority of people who are depressed. Dr. Sue Varma is here. She's a leading expert on women in depression. And thank you for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
A lot of folks ask me, how do I know if the blues that I feel are important, or if it's this depression that's so serious I got to get it managed and looked at and the like?
Right. No, I think that's a great question. And you know what? All of us have experienced a bad day, a bad week, but depression is different because depression is a persistently low mood that just doesn't go away by itself. You have at least 2 weeks or more of a low mood, plus you have other associated symptoms. Now, you guys may not have all of these symptoms when you're depressed, but you may have difficulty concentrating, appetite, sleeping problems, focusing, energy, and sometimes even thoughts of suicide.
So what I thought we'd do today is to bring out all those warning signs and do them in a very simple, straightforward fashion, because I don't want anyone to miss these. The first warning sign of depression is loss of interest or pleasure in activities that you normally used to enjoy. That's why I actually think depression is the so what disease. You know, people dismiss all the good things happening in their life. They're resistant to all those ideas, and they say, you know, so what if I did well at that? So what if he said he loves me? I don't feel valued. And I think for many of us, that's one of the first things that we begin to notice as we look at patients. So I'd love to understand, when you see people in your office, what typically would be the signs of that nature that sort of indicate to you that you might have a problem?
Right. You know, Dr. Oz, all of us have a certain joie de vivre, as the French call it, or a zest for life, whether it be a passion for cooking or for art collecting or for painting. And when you have depression, you start losing the interest, not only in mundane activities, who likes going to work, right? But we lose pleasure in the things that we really, really love.
So if I could turn to our team here, you know, you've talked a little bit about this to some of the producers, I think. Describe to me how your interest in things that you used to love changed when you got depressed.
Yes, Dr. Oz. It was this period in my life this summer when I felt like I couldn't even read the newspaper. It was this kind of thing where going to a movie or seeing other people be happy or be active in their own lives really made me not want to learn about it. And it was just the kind of thing where you just want to stick into your own hole and really not venture out and hear about other people's lives.
Yeah. Do you guys feel that way too? Others have experienced that? Now, Diane has been living with depression for much of her life. Please take a look at her story.
I'm a freelance writer, wife, and mother of 2 wonderful boys. What most people don't know about me is that I'm also a lifelong sufferer of depression. In my early teens, I began to feel a sadness that wouldn't go away. When I saw my yearbook photo, I was mortified that everyone else could see my depression. Even at that early age, I was already feeling like depression was something I needed to hide from the world. In my 20s, my feelings of overwhelming despair finally reeled out of control. I couldn't sleep, eat, or work. All I could think about was how I could end my pain. A coworker found me in an empty room sobbing and dialed the number of a therapist. She handed me the phone and insisted I go see him. It was the best thing I could have done for myself and for my family. I want people living with depression to know they're not alone in this, and that beyond the tears and sadness, there is hope.
You know, it's an incredible story. I remember when I watched the tape package, it just tugs at you in every way because you tell the story so beautifully.
Thank you.
How did you finally get out of it? What pulled you out of the abyss of depression?
Well, there were several things. One was I had to admit that I was depressed and actively seek out support from friends and family, accept that support. I take care of my physical self. That's really important. I try to exercise and eat right and get a good night's sleep, and that really helps my mood.
Well, let me come back to those ideas because those are parts of the solutions that we want to talk about today. But I want to sort of hammer at the second big warning sign. Okay. So the first one was loss of interest in things you used to crave. The second one actually is a change in weight or appetite. We see it a lot. Barna, I'm sure that there are many times in your life when you see this symptom, it puts a big red flag up there saying, talk to me, I'm depressed.
Right. Particularly when you see extremes, or either people are eating too little or they're eating too much. I've seen patients lose 40, 50, 60 pounds because they're depressed, because they don't feel like eating, or the opposite, where they gain that much weight.
So Charmaine, reading your stories, and I have a little bit of all of you in my mind right now, that you had a little bit of an issue with appetite and food.
Oh, definitely, Dr. Oz. Suffering with depression, and when I get depressed, I eat. And I eat, and food is my comfort. I find peace with my pizza and fast foods and cookies and chocolate. You know, it just, that brings me a little bit of happiness.
Does that sound familiar, team?
Yeah.
People nodding their heads, yes.
Yeah, and I find myself just running to it, and at my lowest, I blew up though to 215 pounds.
Is that right?
I'm 5'2".
Yeah.
You know, so
how'd you lose the weight?
I lost the weight by working out, doing yoga, swimming, doing karate, and getting my mind right.
I hope you're all collecting these little tidbits of how you break out of the depression mold. I want to make clear whether you have it or not, but we're going to turn to these solutions in a while, and all these are some of the ones that we actually have proven in studies to be effective. Dr. Barma, why is sleep such an important predictor of depression?
Sleep is one of the first things to be affected in depression. In fact, 80% of people who have sleep problems in depression have insomnia. They can't go to sleep. The opposite, sleeping too much. I had a patient who was sleeping 14 hours a day because she just didn't want to go to work. She was not getting along with her boss.
So either direction becomes a problem.
Exactly.
Right. So we're clear on the third one. The fourth warning sign is a feeling of sadness, of guilt, of hopelessness. Marty, you've had some experience with this at a personal level.
Yes.
Can you please share it with us?
Yes, it's emotional in your state of mind, and I found also physical, like the combination, like just why get out of bed, everything just seems useless. I could see the use for other people, but not for myself. And I remember in the freezing cold, like everything's so numb, including my body, that I'd go out in the winter, and when the bitter cold would hit, I want to cry, would hit my cheeks, it was wonderful because I could actually feel.
Yeah.
And that was the only part of my whole body that could feel.
I hope everyone's hearing this, because when you tell someone that's depressed that they're depressed and they should just get over it, this is what they're feeling. What Marty's describing is so real, and it's so beautifully described. Thank you. The fifth and last warning sign is one that doctors actually use to identify someone who's suffering with depression. You know how we do it? We go in to see you in the room, and if you walk out of the room and we're depressed, then you're depressed. I know that sounds crazily simple, isn't it? But it's actually very effective. And if you go to see a friend and you leave their house and you go like this as you walk out, because it just seems like the sun went away and there's no point to living anymore, then you have to be worried that the person you just talked to, because they can convince you
That's true.
that life's not worth living.
That's
Okay?
true.
You rape your head, yeah. Does that sound?
Misery loves company.
Yes.
It's true. And you really can affect people in such a negative way. They're trying to cheer you up, and you wind up bringing them down.
Yeah.
You know.
So I want to ask you a question now, because you've been listening to me for a while. If you think about these 5 things we just went over, how many of you have experienced these symptoms? Put your hands up. Put your hands up. Yeah. I mean, it's well over a quarter of the audience. And if you've had several of these symptoms, then it is imperative that we break the cycle, that you go out and get some help. So, now that we understand the symptoms, you got all 5 of them? You pretty clear on them?
Yes.
All right. Then I want to move a little bit to action steps. What you can do today to change the chance of this happening in your life. But the first one I want to talk about is getting the right amount of sleep, which I know is a challenge if you're depressed. Insomnia increases the risk of depression by 40%. And just about everybody who's depressed, 90% plus of people who are depressed have poor sleep as one of their symptoms. So if you're not sleeping through the night, should send some lights off. The second step is exercise, which is super, super important. Number 3, I think, is the most important, which is to reach out to your social support system. Why? It lowers stress, it keeps your problems in perspective. And you know what? It works for us either because you've got supportive family members or friends or healthcare professionals. But I can tell you this, medications without that kind of talk support are not the way to go over and over. I mean, I'm assuming you're agreeing because your head's going as fast as it can like this.
You're right on target, Doctor.
And unfortunately, and our weakness as physicians is you come to us, we feel helpless. And the only thing we can do is to give you the pills, because it's much easier for us to do that than to sit down and have that very challenging conversation to figure out what really happened in your lives. For all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Barma, wonderful insights, beautifully delivered. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Listen, we've got a lot of resources to help you. They're all online at DrOz.com. Please check them out. You don't have to suffer through this illness. There is help out there. People want to support you. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Coming up,
Can you be a vegetarian and eat no vegetables?
the answer is